Singleton Army Base is once again the venue where some of the nation's leading wine judges are patiently sniffing and sipping their way through entries from 50 wine producers north of Sydney. The panel of 10 judges is assisted by 6 associates who are still learning the finer points of grading vintages. For the first time, the associates include a woman, Philippa Treadwell of Cessnock.
I'm still the only female up here in the Hunter that's qualified, but that's no reflection of being a judge or not. It's just a reflection of the way things are in the wine industry, that's all.
The judging will continue over the next 3 days. Today it was the turn of the 1990 vintages, but already there's strong anticipation of the 91 vintage to be judged tomorrow.
Well, we're looking forward to the 91. 91 was a year, and we should be. I've heard the reds are excellent. It'll be interesting to see how the whites turn out.
Bill Chambers of Rutherglen in Victoria is chairman of the judging panel and a regular at the Melbourne show. He says Hunter wines have their own unique quality.
It's very hard to describe, but once smelt and tasted, that's it.
The judges are reluctant to recommend specific wines, but they say the Hunter's traditional Semillon continues to be a favourite, while in the reds the popular Shiraz faces competition from quality Cabernets. Bill says the increasing sophistication of Australian wine lovers will ensure that Hunter vintages continue to improve.
We're getting wines in the shows with much less winemaking faults, so I think we're doing well.
The report sets out to define the factors influencing the structural behaviour of buildings. It illustrates the differences between cracking caused by the earthquake and the damage done by the process known as the swell-shrink cycle of clay soils. According to the ICA, the heavy rains that fell early last year, followed by the extreme drought, triggered that process, and in many cases, cracks identified as earthquake damage were actually due to the extremes of weather. In the last 20 months, 69,000 earthquake claims have been lodged, totalling $912 million. Around 80% have already been settled. So according to Regional Manager of the Council, Chris Henry, only a small proportion of claims will be affected by the findings.
Keith, Don and Merv may get plenty of pleasure from raising money to help the Hunter Valley Cancer Appeal, but the way they go about it would be seen by most of us as downright painful. Every morning before the sun is up, the trio climb into commercial bins outside the city's pubs and clubs to retrieve aluminium cans. But the pain in their collecting method will be alleviated a little thanks to the kindness of people who saw last night's report of the can men. Keith says between the three of them, they've received dozens of calls from viewers who want to help out by giving them bundles of cans. Companies are also joining the charity drive. The manual transmission factory has offered to donate alloy casing scraps worth about $400 a month. Keith says they currently give about $500 a month to cancer sufferers, but the amounts on the cheques are now set to increase. But that doesn't mean the can men will stop their pre-dawn excursions into the city's bins, searching for the treasure in the trash.
It seems old news is bad news, and old newspapers are a spent resource, adding to mountains of waste. The ink-soaked broadsheets are unattractive to paper recyclers.
It's one of the lowest forms of garbage, and there's so much of it, so I thought that newspaper was probably the best way to go. But you don't have to just use newspaper, you could use any form of paper, but I picked that one because you could recycle other paper back into paper again.
24-year-old Jenny Dennis of Spears Point cooked up her idea at home. She's turning waste paper into fire bricks. In itself, not a new idea, but one she hopes could be taken up by whole communities. A weekend-sized newspaper goes into each brick. It's pulped, then pressed and dried. One brick will burn for about an hour in a combustion heater. Jenny is thinking big and has drawn up plans for a larger scale operation. The liquid pulp would be fed from a vat and pressed to turn out a number of bricks at once. Much of the water used in the process is collected and recycled.
We just keep recycling everything that we've got, and even the machinery can be is made out of recycled things as well. So when we make the machine up, the larger scale, we're using all second-hand things to do that as well, instead of using new things.
To make the project commercially viable, Jenny envisages suburban paper dumps being set up, with the fire bricks then sold back to the residents.
Closing time came early for many Wallsend shopkeepers today. They decided to shut their doors in a bid to keep their hospital open.
This is a community-based area here, and we desperately need this hospital for the elderly and the young people in the Minmar and Marylands area, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Others deemed it good business sense to sacrifice a few hours' trade in a bid to stave off the planned closure.
Naturally, there's going to be a bit of a jolt because some of them come down and walk down, get something for their lunch and everything like that, or buy things in their lunchtime, like most when you're working you do.
The larger financial institutions remained open, as did a few hardy small traders. They weren't keen to give their reasons. While the majority of shopkeepers lined the streets, thousands of trade unionists joined the protest march. They succeeded in swelling the numbers despite alleged sabotage tactics from some employers.
A number of employers in the metal industry, a number in the steel industry, those types of employers that have got that historical anti-union view and anti-community view.
The Newcastle waterfront was left idle for more than 4 hours, and major building sites such as the new Workers' Club came to a standstill. It may not be the last time that tools and tills are abandoned.
The solidarity of these people is remaining very tight. This hospital is not going to close, and this rally won't be the end of the demonstrations. We will continue to fight and struggle until it's confirmed that Wallsend Hospital will be remaining open.
Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
Feeding the parking meter is the closing ritual of any journey into the city, but if you're short of change or in a hurry, it can be a frustrating obstacle. How much easier to tear off a coupon and place it in your car window. The coupon system is in use in several European countries where parking meters are either too costly or just too unsightly to be installed. Well, instead of putting coins into a meter like this, all I'll have to do under the new plan is tear a ticket like this from my booklet, mark in the hour and the minute that I arrived, and the date, and display it in the car window. The driver merely punches out holes on the diagrammatic calendar and clock face, making the coupon good for one use only. The system's being touted by Alderman Ashley Saunders and a local company anxious to take on the production of coupon booklets. Last night, Council agreed to a trial of the system in the city, possibly from December.
Some of the potential advantages are that you can do away with parking meters, you can do away with the labour-intensive job of collecting the money, you can do away with the vandal threats, and also, of course, the maintenance on parking meters.
The trial still has to meet the approval of police and the RTA and will require parking meter inspectors to accept the coupons as legal fare. But Mr Saunders is convinced that the coupon system will gain acceptance and pave the way for other Australian cities to follow suit.
If this system is a goer, then I think Newcastle stands to benefit from it, and if it's not, we've lost nothing.
Also about to take its place on Newcastle roads, the police speed camera. Already reaping thousands of dollars revenue in Sydney, the first speed cameras are expected in the Hunter from October. High on the police agenda for trials will be the Pacific Highway at Belmont and the Industrial Highway at Mayfield. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
Meet the Caterpillar 994, 193 tonnes of wheel loader. Whatever you do though, don't get in its way. There are only 6 994s in existence, and this is the only one outside the United States. It was shipped over in 13 loads and pieced together in the Gough and Gilmore workshops at Mount Thorley. For the technically minded, it's powered by a Cat turbocharged diesel engine 18 times more powerful than a large family sedan. It's 4 metres high, and in less than 3 minutes the 994 could excavate ground the size of a backyard swimming pool. It will begin work at the Mount Thorley mine on Friday, loading large mining trucks capable of carrying up to 240 tonnes.
What is now bushland on Newcastle's Western Fringe has been earmarked as the site for future houses for initially 23,000 people, but eventually 50,000. The 570-hectare parcel stretches from Maryland to Minmi, and the City Council has now begun a 10-year plan for the new suburbs to contain more than 8,000 households.
What we're talking about is stopping the sprawl by giving people a housing opportunity close to the city.
With Minmi's heritage stretching back 150 years, the residents have mixed feelings about the urban sprawl reaching their doorstep.
Bigger populations, I think it's more troubles, more headaches, people getting more problems.
Because it was inevitable, I suppose most of us got used to the idea that population would move out in this way, and that there probably was nowhere else for it to go.
But what concerns both the residents and the Lord Mayor is the new developments will be without a nearby hospital once Wallsend closes.
I think it's completely bizarre that with an initial projected increase in population of 23,000 and a possible increase, including to the north and to the south of Minmi, of in excess of 70,000 within the next 10 or 15 years, that they'd even contemplate closing down a hospital.
Urban growth is set to take off in Port Stephens Shire as well, with plans for a 4,000 household development at Fern Bay. Keith Blackmore from Port Stephens Shire Council says the development will encompass about 450 hectares of land and be home for about 10,000 people. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Teamwork was the key word for the Falcons at practice today. They pushed reigning champs Perth all the way last week when 4 players hit double figures. But coach Tom Wiseman is looking to share the points around even more when the side takes on Hobart this weekend.
We've had 5 now in the game against Adelaide, but I'd like to get to 6 or 7 people scoring double figures where the ball's being spread around and we're more of a team threat then.
The Falcons beat the Devils by just 2 points when the sides clashed at Broadmeadow earlier this year. A win away from home would give the team a chance to avoid the wooden spoon and also break a dreadful on-the-road losing streak.
It's been a while, it's the 1989 season since the Falcons have won on the road, but actually a win only brings us level with Illawarra, and Illawarra have a point spread on us, so it doesn't actually get us off the bottom. We need to win a road game and win another ball game this year to get off the bottom, and we're looking at trying to do that.
Established in 1840, what's now Tubman's Pharmacy has seen better days. Founded by W.G. Lipscomb, the pharmacy was once a thriving concern, but even W.G. couldn't have bargained on the recession. The economic climate and Maitland's bypass and mall have combined to end a 151-year-old tradition. But a former owner of the pharmacy says federal government pharmaceutical policy changes are partly to blame. Ken Tubman bought the business in 1952, selling out about 10 years ago to then-employee Lyndon McLeod. The pharmacy's 19th century look has since given way to modernisation, but some of its age-old products are still on sale.
Yeah, Morris's coffee machine is still made today, and that was made by Mr Morris, or there was a couple of Mr Morrises before I came here. People still buy it, and it's made by the original formula that was back, I don't know when it was, 1880.
The pharmacy closes on Saturday.
As public concern over the Hunter region helicopter rescue services operations has increased, so too has Westpac's. The banking giant wrote a letter last week to the head of the Surf Lifesaving Association seeking answers on whether a Sydney-based subsidiary of the association controlled the Hunter Services assets, including the Angel One chopper. In the letter, Westpac's Community Relations Manager Tony Benner wrote, "The fact that the helicopter was paid for by local fundraising activities brings us to the view that there are strong moral grounds for Hunter autonomy." But following a meeting with SLSA officials and the chairman of the Hunter Services Board, Scott Derwin, Westpac says it's received satisfactory answers to the public concerns. But Westpac hasn't promised that its sponsorship of the Hunter Service, due for renewal next month, will continue. Mr Benner only says the bank is keen for the sponsorship deal to continue. The Community Relations Manager says Westpac has no comment to make about the Chief Secretary's department serving the Hunter organisation with a notice for breaching the Charities Collections Act. Mr Benner says he hopes that the SLSA and other parties will resolve the issue as soon as possible.
According to John Hewson, Australia is a land of missed opportunity, moving into an era of entrenched high unemployment with a disappointing budget to guide it.
It really didn't contain the normal economic assessments that we look for. It didn't have any sense of direction for us as a nation, and it didn't really address what most of us would see as the basic economic problems in Australia.
But today's Chamber of Commerce luncheon heard the Liberals have an 8-point plan to save the nation. It includes cuts to government expenditure, improved infrastructure and the Coalition's controversial labour market and tax packages.
Tax reform's fundamental. Labour market reform gives people a chance to earn more. Tax reform gives them a chance to keep more.
And the Hunter is likely to hear much more of the Coalition's policies over the next few months.
I think the election can be won or lost between the Hawkesbury and Cape York. There are 5 seats in New South Wales in that area, and there are 8 seats under a margin of 5% in Queensland, which are all winnable. I'm here now, but 5 or 6 of my colleagues will be through in the next 6 months or so, probably 1 a month, just to keep the Liberal message up there.
The 3-storey centre will house up to 60 specialists and a range of supporting diagnostic services, including a day surgery unit. The surgery will have 2 operating theatres and 20 day beds. The centre will be built just metres from the John Hunter Hospital. Historic Crowder's House will be restored and is likely to accommodate patients and their families or become a conference and seminar centre. The project is headed by a Sydney consortium, Medical Centre Concepts, which acquired the site earlier this month. Newcastle builder DF McCloy and Sydney-based company Edwards Development will construct the centre. A development application for the project will be submitted to Council next week.
Since a daughter, Tracy Lee, was shot dead by a former boyfriend 3 years ago, Dawn Gilbert has been fighting for a better deal for crime victims in the Hunter. But now Mrs Gilbert is taking her battle to the state arena. She's been invited to join a government committee that will work with groups like Vocal.
I want to see victims taken care of. At the moment they're just a forgotten victim, and I believe that being through the trauma myself, I didn't really start to come to terms with anything until we did form Vocal and had the support of other victims.
Mrs Gilbert is one of the organisers of tomorrow night's public meeting at West Leagues Club to protest against what her group sees as a slack justice system and lax gun laws. She's uncertain if there's any political motives behind the committee and her appointment to it.
Well, I guess we'll find out on how well things go, whether it's a political ball game again or whether they're genuine.
A spokesman for the Attorney-General's Department says the committee has not been thrown together as a political response to the public outrage over gun laws. He says the formation of the committee is a fulfilment of a promise made before the May elections. Also pushing for tighter gun laws, the Anglican Bishop of Newcastle, the Right Reverend Alfred Holland, and the Northern Zone of the Police Association.
It's a matter that's long overdue. We've been fighting it from the association for the last 9 or 10 years.
And tension today when police were called to a Wallsend home after reports of shots being fired. Wallsend detectives took into custody a 19-year-old man who allegedly tried out a .22 rifle and ammunition found under his parents' house. He's been charged with not possessing a shooter's licence and using a firearm unsafely. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Around 300 Hunter Region TAFE teachers endorsed the statewide recommendation to suspend the campaign of industrial action. They say they're not intimidated by the government's threat to deregister the union, but believe the time is right to pursue other avenues of protest.
We've decided to take a political orientation. We realise the Corona government is on the knife edge. The Labor Party have indicated they would reopen the award if they were elected. And with campaigns like the bumper sticker campaign, Griner hates the wage earner, which we're going to implement, we're going to orientate our action politically.
Although only 1/3 of the Hunters TAFE teachers attended the Adamstown meeting, the union claims it has majority support in its fight against the wage package, which was handed down last month by the Industrial Commission.
We're very pleased with the size of the meeting. The indications were in the Hunter area here that there was a 90% support for the strike.
Also of concern to the union, the government's plan to cut the number of counsellors in TAFE colleges by 50%. The union claims the entire community will lose out.
Those counsellors help students who are having trouble with their programs, who are having difficulty fitting into classes, who are disruptive and so on and need that sort of support, and staff who need support.
Teachers will return to work tomorrow. Jodie McKay, NBN News. Over the past 3 days, residents have tried everything to stop this road going ahead, but today council bulldozers moved in. Residents claim the area is the last remaining koala habitat in Lake Macquarie and the home of many species of wildlife. But despite this, Lake Macquarie Council gave the go-ahead for the road on Monday night. Alison Dunn says her anger at council has passed and all that's left is sadness.